Okay. I'd like to call the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for June the 10th, 2019 to order. It is exactly 5 o'clock. If we could, we'll start with agenda item 2, and that'll be the approval of minutes. Consider taking action for the minutes from May 13th of 2019. If we could review those, please. If there are no changes, would someone make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right. Then we'll go on to agenda item number 3 to discuss the outcome from City Council meeting on May 21st of 2019.
Okay, the specific use permit for 2722 Durst, P&Z voted 5-0 on that specific use permit. Council voted 4-1. The rezoning along the loop, North Loop, to B2 general business for a medical office. Your board, P&Z, voted 4-0, and City Council voted 5-0.
Wonderful. Thank you for the update. We'll move right on to agenda item 4. Consider a request for a historic overlay for Lot 10-A, City Block 62, located at 909 Carricker Street, Nacogdoches.
Good evening, Chairman, Planning and Zoning. Brian Bray, I'm the Director of Community Services, and actually it was kind of nice to walk in and go, hey, I know these people's faces. I wasn't really sure who was on Planning and Zoning these days, but I don't know if any of you have reviewed, at least I know that Commissioner Depesh has when his previous life on preservation, but I don't know if the other 3 of you have. So we have historic overlay zoning. We do not go out and dictate. It's all voluntary, so this is a voluntary item. And it's historic overlay case 2019-001, and the applicant is Ms. Moreland on behalf of Southwest Region Conference of SDA. And I'm sure that Mr. Bohawk or somebody else would ask, has the owner approved? Yes, the owner is approved. Okay. But it has been applied for on their behalf by someone who lives here because the Southwest region does not have an off, they're not here locally. So our section 50-130 of city ordinance criteria for designation says that one of 6 criteria has to be met in order to recommend approval. This is like any other zoning case you have. You're not making the final decision. You are simply making a recommendation to City Council. When staff met with the applicant, we determined that item number 3 was the most appropriate and pertained to this one, and that is associated with the lives of persons significant in the city's past. During the HLPC meeting, Historic Landmark Preservation Commission meeting, one of the council members actually said, or excuse me, commission member said, they believe that it also fell under category 2. So this is obviously a strong case. This is an unusual one in that it is not the structure that is being preserved. It's actually the events that took place there. So it was Jesse Mayfield, who was the one who founded that church. Centurion, part of his history is actually in your packet, so I'm not going to bore you with reading all of that. But to sum it up, HLPC recommended approval under Category 3. There was also a strong case that could be made for religious history under Category 2, and staff also recommends approval. So, Chairman, the applicant is not here. Sorry, I was just making sure they weren't here.
Are there any questions?
Is it currently being used as a church?
Yes.
Okay.
Do they want to do any renovations before they do this?
No.
You sure?
And so, yes. And so, the reason Mr. Depesh is asking that, and we have relayed that to the owners and to the applicant, most times when you have a property under historic overlay, you have to be fairly careful with the exterior renovations. In this case, notes are being put into the file that we're not necessarily worried about that because it's the person in the events, not the structure. Okay. So, as you all very well know, we have to make the lot zoned historic overlay, but it's because of the events, not the structure. So at some point in the future, when they come to apply for exterior restoration, it will have lots of leeway because it's, once again, not the building that's being preserved.
Okay. Any other questions?
No.
Okay.
What,
Oh, yes.
I'm sorry, what significance, I guess, just trying to preserve the history of how it was founded?
Preserving the history of Mr. Jesse Mayfield. So,
Okay.
I mean, he was an uneducated man who came to Nacogdoches, and I don't know if you read any of that, so I don't want to, but it's because of what he did and his significance to that community and to the city as a whole that the request was made. So there will always be a place where Jesse Mayfield's history can be found.
Okay.
That's the main reason for doing this, is just to have that sit there.
Yes,
That's
sir.
the way I understood it, okay.
Is this a prerequisite to maybe getting some other, like, recognition for that site from, like, the state or some other?
They very well may pursue that at some point in the future, and we would be happy to help them do it if they chose to. They have books on Jesse Mayfield. I mean, there's not published, but the family, and when they brought in their application, I mean, there was a stack probably 4 inches thick. And Hannah Anderson, who's behind me, kind of looked at it and said, "Could you sum that up for us? Because I don't have the time to read the entire packet."
Give you the Cliff notes there. Interesting, okay. Anything else?
No, I think it's a great, great application. I support it.
I think that's it. Thank you,
Thank you.
Brian. Do we want to go ahead and make a motion on that as well? Is there anything that's, Leo, is there anything you need to add? No. Okay.
I'll make a motion to approve, gotta get the number. HO 2019-001 as brought to us, recommended to us by the Historic Landmark Preservation Committee.
Is there a second?
I second.
Okay. All those in favor? Say
Aye.
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 All those opposed? Wonderful. Thank you all very much. We'll move on to agenda item 5, public hearing. Consider the request for a specific use permit to construct a park/sporting field complex on the lot 20-A of City Block 54, parcel ID 24709, generally located at the southwest corner of Tower Road and Park Street, the Boys and Girls Club.
Okay. We did receive an SUP application to construct a park or sporting field complex. I think with the Boys and Girls Club, I don't know whether to say they operate as a private entity or a public entity, but whatever they do is for the entire community. So it's more of a public use, but owned by private non-profit organization. The idea, based on the site plan they presented, they were going to have a baseball field and use it as a multi-purpose sports facility. And I have one of the architect here, in case I give any wrong information, she'll be here to clarify that. So per the city ordinance, this can be done in an agricultural zone with an SUP. I have the location here showing the site. It's right at the corner of Tower Road and Park Street. I have the site in picture, and right across the existing Boys and Girls Club. Currently it's wooded, and they intend to do all those sports field construction on that site. The current zoning for the property is agriculture, and it's going to remain as such. This SUP will not change the zoning or any of those regulations with regards to the zoning. The future land use designate this area to be vacant, meaning that the future land use for this area will depend on our current uses. And so currently they want to use that as a sporting facility. And based on a comprehensive plan, it does allow for neighborhood facilities that benefit the entire community. And so we don't think this SUP is against this. It's against the comprehensive plan. Staff did look at certain factors with regards to approving an SUP in terms of compatibility. We believe the area is in close proximity to the existing Boys and Girls Club, so it's easy for people who patronize the Boys and Girls Club to easily walk across the street to use this facility. We do agree that the proposed land use is low intensity and in nature, and will primarily be used in the afternoon and evening times, and so we don't see it causing any serious traffic along Park Street or Tower Road. In terms of orderly growth and development, the development would adhere to all city regulations. We have actually reviewed the preliminary site plan, and we feel it's in line with what the city subdivision regulation requires. The site will be served by all utilities. It will also have driveways, it will have parking, and any other developments that will make the site suitable for the proposed use. Nuisance, we believe, being a sporting facility, we can't shy away from the fact that there's a possibility of noise and light pollution to some extent. But after talking to the applicants and the proposed developments, they have promised that the lights that they will put on the field will be turned down away from the residents. But we just want to put out the fact that this is something that is possible. Noise in the area can be, a nuisance. But looking at the history of Boys and Girls Club and what they do for the community, we believe they are good neighbors and will do everything possible not to create any adverse effect for people who live around that neighborhood. As you can see, we have residences and even a school across the street. So staff believes this nuisance is possible, but we'll work with them in as much as possible to minimize it. Landscaping, based on the site plan and discussion, they plan to leave most of the trees surrounding, go back to the area, they'll leave most of the trees surrounding this property to serve as physical barriers, and some of these would also take care of the screening. It will take care of the noise pollution and other stuff that we might come up in the future. So in considering that, staff believes this use will not have any serious adverse impact on the community. It will be a great addition to the community and will serve a very good purpose. As you can see on the screen, I have a site plan showing it from Park Street and from Tower Road. This is the site plan they presented to us. And then I think one of the main things we looked at was parking. But based on having a discussion with them, they were going to have a shared parking agreement with NISD, which is right across the street. And the distance from this location and the parking, was an allowable distance, and so we think they can work well with each other. Considering the fact that most of the activities will be during the evening and on the weekends, NISD will be closed by then, and so that shared parking agreement we believe would really work well with the Boys and Girls Club. Have a site plan showing I think that the baseball fields, and I think it's probably going to be a multi-purpose. They could always use it for something else. Pictures from the west to the south showing the residences, to the north showing the school, and to the east showing some residences as well. Have pictures here of the Boys and Girls Club itself, and like I said, the area, the site in particular has a lot of trees around it, and we have talked to them about tree preservation, and we hope that if they're able to preserve most of these trees, it will form a very great barrier for the development. So keynote, we believe this will function as a public center that will act as a catalyst for neighborhood interactions. And although the development is low intensity, there's still reasons to consider noise and light pollution, and which I believe the applicant has greatly given us assurance that he would do well to work on that. So looking at the benefits of this use and looking at the community, looking at the location, we believe that people in the neighborhood and people in the city are already used to Boys and Girls Clubs and their activity. And so we don't envisage any potential issues. We did send out letters to people within the 200 feet notification. We sent out a notice in the newspaper, and nobody has called or written to be opposed to this development. And so staff will recommend approval of this SUP.
Are there any questions for you?
I thought it was strange we had to do a special use permit, and then I looked at the ordinances, and I think it's the only way you can do a recreation field like this, right?
Yeah.
Is that typical? This is like a question about planning in general. There's some cities that would allow, have a specific zoning for recreation.
Yeah.
So we wouldn't have to do that, or?
Yeah. I think, like you rightly said, most cities will put this in commercial zone. But I think with Nacogdoches, I think it was allowed in the ag because most of the ag lands are really large, 2 acres and above.
Right.
And so it's possible to retain such development or contain such development in the agricultural zone. I think most of the ag properties in the city are probably 2 acres and over, and so and that's why they allowed it in the SUP. Yeah.
And you're not recommending any conditions be put on this at all?
No, we did talk to them about screening and then the light, and so the applicant met with us, and they are going to be good neighbors and work on that. So we are just allowing it to go in good faith, that they would have lights that would be turned down and not bright light that would be facing those residences. So.
And again, parking, you said that they're just gonna use the school across as far as all parking, is what you're thinking, or there actually gonna be a site on here for some parking?
I think they are going to have sites parking, but it will not be enough. And so NISD would have to grant them the shared parking agreement. So it's not going to be just a verbal agreement. They have to show written documentation on that
Okay.
Yeah, it's the handicap parking that will be on site.
site.
And then the other will be,
Any other questions? Okay. Well, this is an open meeting, so if anyone would like to speak for or against, feel free to step up and speak.
well, I mean, I have all the plans, but, I mean, he did a great job. I'm Sally Ann Swearingen, and, you know, we're just trying to have a facility because, the Smiths donated the land years ago, and so we're trying to go back and put what their goal was to wish if baseball or soccer or football, it's laid out so that it can kind of change and go back and forth. We'll have a concession stand on that site, which Leo showed y'all. But it's the rest of it's field. Of course, I think the neighbors are all excited because they have a place for the kids to play. So other than that, that's kind of basically it. Do you have any other questions?
So this won't be fenced or anything?
Oh, we'll
right?
have a fence all the way around it, yes. Because we don't want any child running out after a ball or anything like
Okay.
that. And so, the way we're turning, like the baseball fields, you know, when they hit, they'll be hit within each other, the opposite corners, not toward any residents. And then we'll do some tall netting on certain areas, just in case somebody hits back, fly ball to the back.
Can you talk about the lights?
And the lights, you know, what we're trying to do, and that's, the lighting's not gonna happen probably for a few years, but when it does, we've kind of make sure they're going down, not up, because we know of light pollution. And so, we'll put those on, but most of the time, I mean, the boys and girls activities stops at dark anyway, so, I can't foresee that it's gonna be up and running unless some of the city, you know, runs out of, needs to expand. You know, we've had, Brian's on our board, so he knows. If they expand and need to have a game or something, then we'll have the lighting to accomplish that.
But it won't be an all-night affair.
Oh,
obviously
no,
not,
no,
so,
no, no,
yeah.
because it's, the only like baseball, it's T-ball, and you can't keep these kids up late anyway, so it's not like we're gonna have
You
games all night
can
long.
if you want to risk it.
No all-night tournaments, right?
All-night tournaments, yeah, they probably like it. Any other questions for me?
I don't think so. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you.
Anything else for you? I'll entertain a motion if somebody would like to.
Make a motion, we accept the Boys and Girls Club, do I need to say SUP 19-02?
That sounds good.
Yeah.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you very much. And I think, Leo's, anything else that you have? Okay, wonderful. Well, that will adjourn our meeting. That was a short one. Thank you very much for coming.
Before you run out the door, can I use your phone to call my husband?
Sure.
I left my phone